my Area 51 line. You're on the air. Hello.
Welcome to the Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast, where what you've known as reality will be shattered by the truth. Krista and Brandy will lift the veil from your eyes, revealing what has either been hidden or denied you for eons.
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday.
Finally, we made it. Almost to Friday.
Almost. We're almost to Friday.
Yeah.
One more day.
We have big plans this weekend too. We're going to Missouri State Penitentiary. We will be leaving. We're not staying.
Yes, I am not staying. Of course, our paranormal group, Haunted Soulz. That is with a Z, Haunted Soulz. We're putting on an event at Missouri State Penitentiary, and guess what? We're sold out, everybody. We're sold out.
We are
sold out.
Yep.
But the following weekend? We're having another event at Arcadia Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's in, of course, our Arcadia, Missouri.
Ironton, Missouri.
Ironton.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's all in that little area. It's all grouped together. Yep. I guess it depends on whose backyard you're standing in.
That's right. That's right.
And we still have open spots for that. So if you're interested in anything that you would want to investigate, we do recommend Arcadia Academy. And, check us out on the Haunted Soulz page on Facebook. You can get all your information there.
Yep, absolutely. Also, Crossing Realms. We have a conference.
We have a conference, everyone. Not that we don't have enough to do, but we have a conference going on. It is September 19th and 20th at the Eagleton Civic Center in Richmond, Missouri. Of course, we're going the meet and greet Friday night. We have the ever so good lineup for Saturday's conference. Our Saturday night ghost hunt is sold out, so we don't have any tickets for that available. But guess what? Mm-hmm. Chris has opened up Thursday night. We're going to have social night.
Yep.
We're having social night. That is going to be at the Big River Ranch there in Lexington, Missouri. It is for ticket holders only. I'm very sorry, everybody. I am so sorry. But you have to have a ticket to attend. If you need a ticket, you want a ticket, buy one for you, your friend, your mom, your dad, buy one for everyone. But make sure you get a ticket so you can come see us at social night on Thursday night. But go to Crossing Realms Conference on, of course, Eventbrite. And it has all the information there. We also have a psychic gallery with Mary Lynn Bass that's going to be happening. You can get your tickets for that. Mm-hmm. And if you want to be a vendor, we have infinite a number of spaces for vendors. We don't care what you sell as long as it's, appropriate for everyone. And PG rated. And you can get all that information on Eventbrite under Crossing Realms Conference.
Yep, absolutely. So I'm not going to waste any time tonight because Will Lunsford is here along with his partner, Stephen Hill, and Will is one of our speakers at our conference. So
yes, our favorite peoples are here.
I know, right? I'm going to go ahead and bring them up here. Hey.
How is everybody tonight?
We are good.
I've been looking forward to this. Getting ready for Christmas, as you can see, with Bigfoot right here. Gift from one of my friends here. Got a little got a little light at Bigfoot feet, but it is so cool. You turn off the lights, it's pretty doggone neat. So,
I want some of those. I need to hang them up behind me.
Man, I'll see if I can't get you some. I'm so excited to be here again with Stephen tonight. He and I don't get together much.
It's your first time guest.
And he's heard so much about blondes and booze. He said, it could be because we got one of the girls' name is Brandy. He said, no. Could be because their beauty is haunting. And I said, could be. And it could be because their beauty is intoxicating. But nevertheless, it's going to be good. It's going to be a good show. Y'all know Stephen. Y'all got to meet Stephen. He's the real thing. Don't let anybody tell
We did.
anybody different. So glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to our veterans for what they've done for us that we can be here.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome. But I do have to let you in on something, Will. Me and Chris are, we're getting up there in age. We were talking about our hair. We're probably going to have to rename our show one day called Ghosts and Grays. That's what's going to have to happen.
Well,
That's
that would be clever.
That's true. That is
Always be prepared.
always.
We will have a sequel, everyone.
There you go.
Yes. But yeah, it's all good though. We're so happy you guys came and we definitely consider you guys friends and Will, we've known you for a long time and you've ended up becoming a really good friend to us and we support the work you guys do and in turn, you guys definitely have been supportive of us. So we appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
Y'all have heard about Stephen, his reputation precedes him, and it's all true. So partly true. No.
always been
One
kind.
eye if it's yes, and other eye if it's no.
There you go.
I'm so glad to have Stephen here. You're not going to be disappointed with him here as a guest. Folks who are in the chat room, they're not going to be disappointed either, for sure. So
Well, I want to open up this conversation. I don't want to start at the beginning. I'm going to go in this halfway through the middle. We haven't been together to talk about when we were down there with y'all. And we went out for that evening. And I would like you guys to just kind of talk about the area. You don't have to tell us where it is, but talk about the area, what you've seen there and things like that.
Sure.
I'll let Stephen start out. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, that's the area that we have called we've decided to name that place the Dark Woods. Of course, as you two know, I mean, it's a public area.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But on like Sunday nights and during the summertime, during the week, if you see one vehicle, you're doing good. I mean, there's just nobody in there. And
there's no public there during that time.
No. There from about September through about December. That's when the majority of the traffic is going to be in there for hunting season, stuff like that. Other than that, I mean, it's well maintained and it's a good place. We call it the Dark Woods because there's, as y'all can testify to it, I mean, you don't have to worry about light pollution.
Nope, not at all. It is except for the lightning bugs. They were hot and heavy that night.
Yeah, the lightning bugs and those other
Look like
things.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, those. I don't know what. Do y'all think that might have been the will o' the wisp, the red things that were darting by and stuff like that, whatever you were seeing, or were just red orbs, or because some of that was moving so fast that if you weren't looking, you wouldn't even see it.
Yeah.
Because it was moving so fast.
I can't really answer what it was. I don't know.
I mean, I've been calling it orbs. I mean, for lack of anything else to explain it. But I mean, we saw it. I mean, it was red, and then it would pop and move, and it was not a bug.
No. It's lightning bugs don't move that fast.
No, they're not red. So they don't illuminate red. So I mean, there was that. I mean, but it was picturesque for me. Just because when the sun was going down and, we kind of had the gap in the trees and everything and we could see the stars and it was just, I don't know. I don't even, it was just so beautiful with all the lightning bugs just going about. And I mean, it was just like a magical place.
Yeah.
Well, it is. And that whenever you have that many lightning bugs, that's always a sign of a healthy environment. So,
yeah. And at some point during that night, if you all remember, we heard like things in the woods on like coming from different sides of us. So I really, really believe that we were, being surrounded, not in a negative way, just, coming up to kind of check us out.
Yeah, because you're absolutely right. I mean, we were hearing stuff. We were hearing steps on both sides of us. And not all those owl calls that we were hearing were owls. I'm just not convinced. I'm just convinced that not all of them were owls, especially when we heard the crow. Because when we heard the crow, that's a dead giveaway that, hey, we've got something else out here. That's right. Because crows do not sound off at night. Because
it was dark out there for sure. You couldn't see. I mean, I couldn't really see 20 feet in front of me without my light on.
And if y'all remember, the one sound sounded juvenile.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. The whoop.
Yep.
You know, and that's why, to me, in my mind, I'm kind of wondering if we didn't get in between a young one and maybe the adults.
Yeah. We could have.
Well, I kind of thought the same thing because when I was moving up, in front of the trucks and moving out towards the tree line there, I kept getting like a blur. Like I would be looking, everything would be okay. I mean, I'm a paranormal investigator. I watch things in the dark, so I know, when my, everything's good. I've done it for years, but for some reason, the tree line would just automatically blur. And I couldn't figure out why. And that's when I just started walking backwards. I'm like, ooh, I'm not going to step right up there real close. I'm going to move back a little bit and I'm going to watch it from over here. But I did see it blur. I don't know what that was about either. Because at first I thought maybe it was my eyes messing with me, but I had my glasses on. So that normally never happens when I have my glasses on. And I was watching it and it would blur. And then, I'd move around or something. And then you'd watch it blur again. So I have no idea what's going on in that place. But it is definitely magical to me.
Yeah. And I just will say it again here on the show. It's what I told you that night. Is where we were at was really close to where three waters come together. Exactly. You have the river and you have a tributary from the west and a tributary from the east.
Right.
And that's what I've read, that's always supposed to be a special place.
Yeah. And there's plenty of, food down there too, between the deer, you have, the hogs, you have, we even seen a snake, so there's plenty of food. Alligators are out there.
I was going to say, if they're feeling a little sassy, there's alligators out there for sure.
Yeah. It's some pretty good sized ones.
Yeah.
And I just give you a fair warning. If you're down in a daylight with William and have to see an alligator in the river, he's liable to start slapping the water with a stick to see if he can get it to come your direction.
I've got videos of that, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
Well, look, I don't think I can run fast enough to get away from one. Even if I zigzag, it's not going to work.
No.
They respond. They respond to their hearing, but also they've got those little dimples there, little bumps in their lips and their jaws, and so those things are actually motion and hearing sensitive also. So they know exactly what direction it's coming from. I do that a lot of times. I'll be carrying somebody with me fishing on some of the lakes, and they've never seen a gator up close. You put it right there and swish it around. Well, and they'll turn that body around, and here they come. And I've had them come within 1.5 feet of the boat, So, but that's what makes that place so cool, because they get in the ditches. There's no telling how many we drove by that were just in the ditches there on the side of the road.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, absolutely. That was quite a night, and seriously, thank you both for taking Brandy and I out. That was
well, that. Y'all come back and we'll go again.
I want to. Yeah, I definitely want to.
I just want to take this time to congratulate you two, because other than Daniel, y'all are the only ones that have ever come to the Dark Woods with us.
Yeah. Oh wow! Thank you for taking
honored.
That. Yeah. It's an awesome place, and I can see why you guys go there so much. I mean, seriously, and I think the Bigfoots that's there, that I think that they know you guys.
I think so.
It may be. I mean, we've actually been down there with some other people before, but they're actually familiar with it, and that's why they reached out to William, is because they were having activity. Yep. I know William. You talk about it. They this one guy he swapped stands with his buddy. Deer stands with him. Is that? Would you go hunting this spot?
That's awesome.
And so they get back together at the end, and he goes, "Well, how was your day?" He said, "Well, I didn't see any deer." He said, "But there's some crazy noises going down over there." And he goes, "Oh yeah." And of course, he started describing the various sounds that Bigfoot make there. And he said, "I just wanted to know if I was crazy or if you heard the same noises there whenever you were down there." He goes, "Absolutely." He said, "I wasn't terrified." He said, "But I was on high alert." And kept his hand on his gun in a ready position, because he didn't know what it was at the time. He didn't necessarily know there was Bigfoot. Now, he kind of figured that might be what it is, but unless you've had that, had that experience, it's one of those things that you just. And so he's real good. And then he was there last year, and I talked to him, and something came up behind him. in his stand. And so he's sitting there and he's listening for the normal sounds he had heard. Well, he didn't get them, but instead he got like an ape does behind him. Now, like I said, I'm not saying Bigfoot's an ape, but I'm saying the sounds he described. And and this guy's a truthful man, and he's very, very good woodsman. So like I said, to put him on that level of alertness was really was something right there that let us know. I've seen a couple of Bigfoot down there. I saw one standing in the river one day. I had one right there standing on the side of the road, and he jumped backwards into the woods there, and I wasn't probably 70 yards away. And by the time I got down there as fast as I could, he was already disappeared. Had he hit the trees, had he laid down there in the grass, whatever. But it was a really a crazy experience. And Stephen and I one night were down there, and so we had a tree knocking call there. We knocked, and then all of a sudden, they knocked back, and this went on for quite a while. And, so there's definitely a lot of Bigfoot down there. I had a lady this year. I went to her house not too far from there, and she asked me, did I ever go through there? And I said, oh yeah. I said, I do. And she said, well, and this lady that lived over by, she said she actually saw, she thought was a baby bear walking down the edge of the tree line, and said it was walking on too. And said, so she stopped and said it looked at her. And so finally it took off kind of running, and it ran off on too. So we know that's not
a bear.
Bears can juggle, they can wrestle, but they ain't gonna walk on too. So
right. Real quick,
I enjoyed having y'all down there, and really did. I enjoyed having y'all. I was glad that we got to go. And like I said, you're welcome anytime. And
we'll be back. We appreciate you guys.
You're not getting rid of us now. It's too late. We're hooked. It's over.
Yes. And thank you, Larry, for the memberships. We appreciate it.
Yes, Larry.
Thank you, Larry. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was just something that I haven't experienced before. Now, that Chris and I had, an encounter. And to me, it was my part of that encounter was very up close and personal. But I've never felt like that. Like I had been like, there's multiple and they were around, because you could hear them moving through there, and the difference between a raccoon and then someone walking around on 2 feet. So
here's my thing too. If you remember right, like you guys would point your lights.
Yep.
There was nothing there,
That's right.
So if it's a deer or even a squirrel, you're going to see it.
I would have definitely seen the eye shine for sure.
You would have. And I've been doing this 48 years and very familiar with the sounds that they make when they're in the woods and stuff like that. And like I said, and that's what they're going to come close. A lot of times they're just wanting to see what you are, sit there for a little bit, and then they just kind of ease off. But then sometimes they forget to get a babysitter. And that was the case when they had the little baby went out there that was whoop.
Yeah.
And that was just so cool. There's no doubt what that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was, but though not at all that night did I feel like threatened or anything like that, none of that. So I think that's really cool. And I think that, they know you and they trust you guys,
Well, I think OPR in chat was the one that said they know Will because he talks a lot.
They're like, shut up so we can whoop, so.
No, they're like, just keep on talking. We're just going to keep walking around watching you, because you have no clue where we're at.
But that we laugh at that, but that's probably true, because they do recognize, one of our other places we go to, they recognize Cindy's voice when she makes a call. Me and Steve, as soon as we get there, the first thing we'll do is Steve will do his version of a Bigfoot call, or I'll do my version of a barred owl call. And before you know it, just like what we heard there, you can hear them walking along the edge of the woods. We actually get in there and see them just standing in there, just looking at you. And so if it's not nighttime, other than it, but you can. So it really it's something that me and Stephen are really grateful for, because it keeps you on your toes.
Oh yeah.
And as I said, it being public area, rarely do we see anybody out there, and especially after dark. And of course, y'all heard us tell the story of the daggum tree stand that's been down there for 8 years, and nobody has showed up at it. And finally, I got a couple of years ago, I got a couple of pictures of looks to be what we call the witch. There's a Bigfoot with gnarly teeth, and my camera was laying there on the ground. And whenever I got my card reader, the first thing I did and turned it on, the first picture pops up. She's doing that, and they were like, kind of shook me up, no joke, because I'm like, oh my gosh, because you don't ever know what you're going to get down there doing that right there. But it is, I agree, they do know us, and like I said, but that's one reason a lot of folks don't get to see any. It's a chance of not getting to spend enough time in the areas. Like I said, look how much money Finding Bigfoot has spent going to these areas all over the world. But one of the reasons is they've got this big diesel that comes there and brings their equipment, and stuff like that, and that they don't have time for the Bigfoot to get to know them, and that's a big deal. Trust is such a big thing. It even is with a dog, or a common household animal. So it's one of those things. Yeah,
absolutely. Yep. It's pretty amazing, like I don't know, just they are there, and I'm not a believer, anymore. Like I know they're there, no doubt at all. Will, I know you've been doing this for a long time, but Stephen, we never heard your story. How did you get into this?
I always had an interest in it. I guess my entire life I've always been somebody who's had an interest in anything that's not supposed to exist. It's I remember as a kid, that's I think In Search Of. I'm sure that I saw some of that when I was a kid. Then you had Unsolved Mysteries and other things like that, and it UFOs, and I was always more into UFOs and I always had an interest in Bigfoot as well. I just never seen anything. I was thinking, it's all the Bigfoots were out west, for a long time, like a lot of people did. And any time that I was in the Falk area, I was familiar with it. It's as I've told people before, used to like on our local news around here in this part of Arkansas comes out of Shreveport, Louisiana. Mm-hmm. And, they used to have an affiliate, or I guess their satellite station was in Texarkana. So every now and then, people would see something cross Highway 71 south of Falk. And every now and then, they would interview the people. And you could always tell the reporter just wasn't overly excited about going and covering another story about the Falk monster. But the people they would interview, sometimes their eyes would still be this big because of what they saw across the highway in front of them. And so anytime I was ever in the Falk area, I'd always look around, but I never saw anything.
Yeah.
But for me, it was in 2009. I was near Top Falls, which is in western Arkansas. And I had one actually cross the road in front of me. It was on all fours. At the beginning, I was thinking, well, this right here is probably a bear. I could see it moving through the trees. I come down a hill, come around a sharp curve. I was probably going about 15 miles an hour. I wouldn't think that I'd be going any faster than that because of the hill and the curve. And I could see that thing moving through the woods. It crossed the road in front of me. It's very, very smooth. It never looked at me or anything. And I watched it cover 80 to 100 yards, and it did it in about, I'd say 3 to 5 seconds, probably 4 or 5 seconds. It covered that amount of ground. Wow. And the front end and the back end, they were really close to being level. It did not have a snout on it. The top of its back would have been about the height of the top of a picnic table, to give you an idea of how tall it was on all fours. And I saw that, and I thought, well, I will see this thing here in a minute, because it was going to have to go up a hill when it crossed the road. And whenever I got up there, I got up there in just a few seconds, and I stopped and I looked, and I couldn't see it. It was, it was kind of about this time of evening, starting to get. It's dark enough. You need to go ahead and turn your headlights on, but you can still see for a few hundred yards. Right now. So.
Yeah. Wow.
But that was the one that got me in it. And I argued back and forth that had to be a bear.
Right.
Bears don't move like that.
Right. Exactly. And then your rational self. So I get what you're saying, because your rational self is like, no, that was a bear. And then your other self is like, no, that wasn't a bear.
No.
My thought was, hey, bears don't have shoulders.
Yeah, you're right. And bears do have a snout. And bears, if you ever seen bears run, they're an ungulate, and if they've got a little bit of weight on them, they've got some stuff moving around everywhere. This one didn't.
Yeah, because you can, bear, you definitely can hear them coming.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And as long as their head is and the snout that they've got, which we have black bears here, which I know you have them in Missouri as well. But yeah, you can definitely see the snout on a bear.
Yes, absolutely.
Everybody always says, well, you've just mistaken a bear for a Bigfoot. Well, how come people aren't mistaking Bigfoot for bear? You know,
Right.
we give them the leeway in one direction, but then they won't give it back to us. So how come we're not mistaking Bigfoot for bear?
Yeah.
Because they're there. And some places that Bigfoot are located, there are no bears. You know,
Right.
And so.
Yeah. Do you guys think that they, have family groups, or what are your guys' beliefs? Do they, in the wild, like a male will eventually go off on his own and start his own family, or do you think they all stay together, or what do you guys believe about that?
To me, that right there would probably make sense. That a male would either go off on his own or wait until the alpha gets old and then he can take over what the alpha was doing.
Right.
But to me, that right there, I've always kind of thought, whenever somebody sees a lone Bigfoot moving through an area, and no others, which it's not surprising that they might not see others, even though it's rare they're ever alone. But to me, I think that right there would probably be something that would make sense. Is one going out trying to start his own troop or his own clan, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe that too, that, that I think once they get to a certain age, they go off to find their own, because, I think like, regular, like tigers, lions, whatever, they go off on their own. And I think it's just an instinct thing, because of inbreeding and things like that, they don't want that.
Yeah.
So I think, that they move off on their own.
That's my thought on it. I may not be right, but but I definitely believe that they operate in a family group. In the ground zero area, it's we're pretty well convinced that there's at least, I'm not surprised there's double digits out there in that family group.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
They have babies quite often. Usually it's not surprising if they have a new baby every year.
Yep.
So I mean, it's pretty healthy environment out there as well. And just was it last week? I found a spring out there. So, but I didn't know it was there.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So there's fresh water right there for them.
Yes.
And I tend to believe that as well. I believe they stay in either family units, or they even adopt, other ones, maybe some that have been kicked out of their tribe, so to speak, whatever. But I believe they live in those units like that. I also believe that every now and then that whenever the big ones are out roaming for food, or like what we experienced that one night, they'll have, a quote babysitter. Some people may want to say a watcher, have a sentry, whatever it is, that they have that sentry, and that's their job,
Right.
Do you guys think that they stay in the same area, or, some people claim that they migrate and then they come back? What are your guys' thoughts on that?
For the ground zero area, I'm a little more familiar with it than William is. And I know more people around here, and I've got more, I can put it together in my mind anyway. And they've got an area. Ground zero is part of their territory, is basically what it is. And they work in a counterclockwise circuit.
Okay.
Is what they do. They'll move through on the north side of the highway. They've got pretty good sized territory. I figure it's going to cover 25 square miles anyway.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It's a big area, but I think that they move through the area. And the reason why I think that is whenever we would see them at ground zero, I knew that it wouldn't be but a day or two. And then I would usually have activity around my place. And then a little bit farther south, they would be activity down there. And then they go east, and there's activity there where the guy has seen these big red eyes out there just beyond his dog pen whenever his dogs were raising Cain. The guy who found tracks in the snow just about a mile east of him. The deer camera that I had on a deer lease that I used to be on back in 2012, And I had a picture of these big red eyes out in the field behind the deer when the camera went off. And then they go to the river and they would go back north and they would just keep making their circle.
Wow.
So
It makes you wonder. It does make you wonder about, because you said that there is a hunting season there. Does that disrupt their pattern or do you think that's just part of their pattern? They just it's kind of built in that they just move out of the area, let that pass, and then come back into the area. What do you think?
I think whenever they happen to be in the ground zero area during hunting season, they hunker down and they stay put, because whenever you can go out there at night, whenever the hunting for the day has officially ended at dark,
True.
You can go out there
They
at
can
night.
move about freely. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's when you can start hearing some things, because they've had to stay hid all day.
Okay.
The ones at Falk, they tend to be more homers. They don't tend to roam around as much on that, and so it's really funny, how the two beings are so distinctly similar, but yet, like I said, they don't have the same pattern. Falk, they'll tend to stay around. They find a homing area or find a breeding area, and so they'll do that as well. So they'll stay down there, and that's and you'll have the same ones that are being seen over and over again at the same times or the same places. And I get a lot of calls, and thankfully for everybody that does call me, say, "Hey, Will, you still doing Bigfoot?" "Yeah, well, let me tell you what I saw." Or "Still doing Falcon monsters?" What they'll say. And so they'll call, and like I said, it just fits to a T, but they tend to be around the same place, all the time as far as that goes. So it's a little bit different in the way they do, but again, like I said, they we mentioned the seasons, the hunting seasons, and Bigfoot is nature's janitor. They get down there during the hunting seasons. A couple of years ago, I was in Alaska, and there weren't any salmon. And so there were a lot of hunters that were sitting there, and Daniel will verify this, that were sitting there telling you stories about all of a sudden they would shoot a moose or shoot an elk. And by the time they got there, a Bigfoot or a grizzly bear, well, most of the time it's grizzly bears, but the grizzly bears would already be on their kill whenever they would. So it was almost like you were sounding an alarm bell, or a dinner bell. And so whenever you get down here with the deer season here, then the Bigfoot, and they're in the woods, and they love deer, man. I mean, everybody's heard that story. That's not just a story, man. Stephen, found it. We've seen the broken legs. I have pictures of people that sent me a picture of the deers that were killed in their yard. A friend of mine sent me one from down there in Texas where the deer was actually killed, and the Bigfoot was actually peeling the skin off the rump, just like you would roll a towel. I mean, it's just beautiful. I wish I could skin a deer that good, So it's something there that they, a skill that no doubt that the good Lord has given them and everything like that. But they tend to utilize of what they can. And then I think they recognize that sound of a gun. And there's a lot of people that I've talked to. I've probably talked to now probably about 12 people, I guess, that have had their deer stolen just as soon as they kill it. And then they get to it. I had one stolen from me back there around probably 25 miles from where Texarkana is. And I sit there and watched it fall, laid there, and I generally wait about 25 or 30 minutes just to be sure. I'm sitting there, I've got it mentally marked in my mind. I get down, I walk over there, and I hear the rustling over there. I'm like, oh crap, he's trying to get up. So I kind of quicken my pace, get over there, and he's gone. I'm like, son of a gun. Go back to my deer stand. I put me some tape right there on that limb right there, so I know I'm in the right place. Go back to my deer stand, crawl back up there. There I am. I'm looking right there at the piece of tape that I put there, walk right back to it, and there's no deer there. 5 days later, I find the skeleton, as well as about 5 other skeletons that have been piled up over there on the edge of the woodline. So that's kind of one of those deals that really, really shocked me, because I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
But I've talked to some other people, like I said, very, very honest people the same way, and they're like, man, you ever heard of Bigfoot stealing deer? It would be strange if you didn't hear from at least one every hunting season.
Right.
Have you guys heard of deer in the trees?
Yes, that have been put there. Yeah. And but let's see, who was it? Mike Woolley actually had one come up there and lay down at the base of the tree that he had his stand in. There's the 2 Bigfoot that got after him, and so the thing was actually right there, laying just with its body on the root line right there. And so, and I think it was using Mike for for protection. I had one day down there right after I'd had my auto accident, and so it was following me through the woods, and it would turn around, and it would look behind it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and he wouldn't stay but 15 feet, no further than 15 feet behind me. And then when I got to a place where I couldn't cross, well, then she quit looking behind her, and she started looking straight ahead as we were walking back. I'm like, well, here we go. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen here. But thank goodness it didn't. But I don't know if it, if my presence actually scared it up. But she was using me as a shield. I believe that with all my heart. So it's and I'm not prone to exaggeration or anything like that. And I'm not just everything's pareidolia. Everything is Bigfoot. But this was very, very the strangest activity I've ever had from a deer. And it actually unnerved me because, like I said, on the way down there, she was looking for that rump. She'd turn around, then she'd get back a little bit. And, she'd just a few quick steps and she'd be back there on me. Then she'd stop and slow down. She'd look back over rump and come back and do the same thing again. So, so it's really, they do some things there. But like I said, that's nature's way of, of taking care of their animals.
I always wondered about that. When you're hunting sometimes and you get so far in the woods, you can't get, a four-wheeler or anything back there, a side by side. You can't get nothing back there. So you got to kind of, if you get a deer, you're going to have to pull it out. Well, we do the field cleaning to lighten our load.
Right.
I'm just going to say that, to lighten our load. So it's to make it easier to pull it on out. I wonder if they use that too. If they kind of like watch you, follow you around, see what you're going to do. Does it seem like they would be more opportunistic, to wait for you to kill it so they don't have to chase it around? That's what it seems like to me.
And just like you say, it's called field dressing. And what you find when you field dress an animal that you kill, you have the vital organs in there, which are the high protein things. And they fall. Man, that's what gives them the beautiful hair they got and the strength they got. And I sent y'all pictures of the teeth that we got of the ones that were biting our camera. Man, their teeth are as good as most of the people's I've seen around here.
Oh yeah,
and that nutrient-rich diet, like Stephen said, very, very healthy areas down there.
Yeah, you sent me some pictures. You want me to show them?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Okay. We will start with this one if you want to tell everybody.
Okay. I just sent a few right here. What we've got right here. We talk about Bigfoot using the infrasound and stuff. This Bigfoot right here is about a little over 9 foot tall at this time, and his name is Brownie. And we had a couple of encounters there where we had seen him before. Well, finally, I set a trail. Me and Stephen set a trail cam on this trail right there. And every time we would come through, the picture would be there. It would be having been taken, but we weren't getting anything. So I finally, one day I was down, told Stephen, I said, he's jumping across that trail. So I just took my camera and turned it just a little bit over there. So it was right where he would land rather than where he could actually clear the whole camera space there. So sure enough, turned it to the right there. And so went down there and you can see how broad that doggone set of shoulders is on Brownie right there. And he's just a monster. But the thing that's really cool about this next picture that you'll see that you show there, that is where he's kind of crouched down there in the edge of the wood line. That's also Brownie. Brownie is walking up to my camera right there. And we got a couple other pictures of him. Those are the only two that
So is it this one here?
That one right there. Exactly right. You can see Brownie right there. Whether you see his head plain as day, you see those big dark eyes. Stephen will vouch for that. And so we would have Brownie coming down through there, and I'm right there by one of our cameras is, well, all of a sudden, the thing on these two pictures that you've just seen, we're talking about infrasound for Bigfoot and the way they use it. These two pictures are burned onto my SD card. They would not come off. I was so excited. I told Cindy and Steve, said, hey, I got him. So here he is right here. Went to go get the pictures. They wouldn't come off. And so luckily, as luck would have it, we had a camera issue here with our own camera. And so Cindy had taken it up there. Well, whenever she did, she asked the guy who had the computer shop, and she goes, have you ever had any case where you can't get a picture off of an SD card? Because we got one that's or two here that's not showing up. Showing up on the camera. Yeah. But then when you try to get on the SD card, it's not there. He said, well, bring it up here. So she does. And sure enough, he checks everything out. And you can't see the Bigfoot on the SD card, or nor is it burned into the camera. But when you want to take the picture, you can't see it. But then where you had to get a camera and take the picture there with a high def one apparatus that goes onto your cell phone, and it would show up. And so he goes, man, that's the strangest thing I've ever seen. He said, I can't figure it out. He said, but let me turn you on some people who maybe can. So he sent me to a place out there in Dallas. Like I said, these people is $159 an hour, minimum 6 hours. So there's your $1,000. And I had to contemplate whether I was going to use $1,000 on I do it bass fishing, but just for my, habit of Bigfoot. And so I talked to Cindy, Cindy's very supportive of what I do. And she, and Stephen as well. And then I asked Stephen what to do. And well, man, if I had your hobby and had evidence like this right here, I believe I'd take it. And so the guy finally from the computer place she's at, he goes, well, what is the picture of? And Cindy goes, my husband is a Bigfoot researcher. Well, he didn't believe it. He kind of just chuckled a little bit. But he sent me on out to Dallas. So I didn't take a chance on mailing the card because I didn't want to lose it. I drove it to Dallas, and they said, we'll get in touch with you in about 5 days here if we can. We'll let you know. So sure enough, there, whenever I get out there and they look at they tell me, so bring your camera wherever you come. So anyway, I leave the camera there. Whenever they get there, they're like, man, whenever we show that picture up there on our equipment, man, they had, when I tell you millions of dollars of equipment, they had millions of dollars of high dollar. These people were very, very intelligent. They weren't just rednecks, with a Polaroid. These people had some, and they're like, well, said when they called, they said, we got good news and bad news. I said, well, great. I said, what's the good news? I said, well, we didn't lose your picture off of your SD card. And I said, oh man, that's good. Because man, how often do you get a picture of Bigfoot, especially with that one right there where he's jumping across and you see the width of the back. His back is 4.5 foot wide. And so I said, man, well, that's good. I said, well, what's the bad news? They said, we can't get it to come off the card. We can't get it to come off the camera. Said it's burned onto it. And and they said, it's just like you said, it says the most inexplicable thing we've ever seen in all our years of doing this kind of computer work. So like we had to get that apparatus, like I said, and take that picture and then get that one there of Brownie coming out of the woods there where you can see him coming cone head there in the brush, and then right there jumping over that daggum trail right there. So that was pretty cool. So, but that's an example of them using infrasound because like I said, they had zapped that camera, and whenever it did, it wouldn't come off of there. And so you're going to show one more picture there that you're going to have right there. And here is a Bigfoot actually zapping this camera. This next one you show here, Krista. Right, you can barely see it, but you can see the shape right there. He's standing in front of that camera. You can see his head on further up there. He kind of has a white face. And this is down at my buddy's land about, probably 20 miles south or 25 miles south of Stephen. But up until this picture right here, everything we get is just clear and it's right side up. Whenever this picture here appears all of a sudden, and like I said, and you figure out what it is, every picture right there after that is upside down and blurry. Every one. And so you, like I said, you see the dark eyes. You can kind of make out a nose right there. I wish it was clear, but that's kind of what you get sometimes. But that dude is actually hitting this camera with infrasound, and it's right during the middle of the day too. So, so this thing that they do, that's kind of how I think sometimes, like you said, the things that we had when it looked like the wood line that night we were all down there was moving and things like that. I think it might be infrasound because this is not strange for animals to use. Our Army and military use it. They can locate enemy artillery and things like that with infrasound. And so I just sent those three. They're just an example. People say, oh man, you're crazy. No, that's actually examples of it. That right there, I put my money where my mouth is, and put it up there for $1,000, and then they didn't charge me for it. They're like, hey man. And so I was very appreciative of that. They actually, some of the ones were from Russia. They believed in the Almasty, and which is the Russian Bigfoot. And they said, man, we've always wondered. I said, now you've proved it. I said, so I was very grateful for that. And they were really good. But things like that, you just, anybody was talking, well, talk about the science. Okay, let's talk about the science. There's your science right there. And so that's real. And that's why I sent you those, because that's something that we can actually have.
You also sent the side-by-side one. I'm going to put that up too.
Yeah, good.
Werewolf has to show the first two again, but these are the first two together.
Okay, right there on the left is Brownie jumping across the trail. There on the right is Brownie coming down that trail off of a. We got kind of a big hill right there, and right now a lot of the pictures I've gotten this year that I've sent to y'all is right there in this same little area. But you see Brownie, here he comes. There's no doubt about it. And I've got several more, like I said, that I didn't include on there, but there he is coming down there, plain as day. And then like I said, then you got Brownie there on the left whenever he's jumping across. But like I said, both of those different days, different times, and both of those are burned into that SD card. And I just thought that was just, so amazing. And because it's something that they can do that we don't understand yet,
Yeah, that's the first time I've ever heard that it was burnt into an SD card like that.
It really was. I've still got the
Yeah.
SD card, and I'll show y'all next time y'all come down. As a matter of fact,
Yeah.
I've got it in there in my safe, you know, where I keep my guns in case somebody tries to not steal my guns, my money's trying to steal my SD card. This is
right. You know, because that is weird. Now I've heard of people losing, you know, their information and their data on the card, or you know, or it malfunctioning, but I've never heard of it like burnt into it. That is amazing.
That's by the computer expert here in Texarkana. Like I said, very, very smart man. But then we went on to Dallas, like I said, down there like that, and with so many experts in computers for what they had and for what they said, hey, it's not, I mean, you know, it's not burned into the camera, but it should be. Said, here, we can't get to pull up on the, you know, on the camera with the until you put the SD card in there. So, so it's really something that was strange, but I thought it was worth sharing to people because there's just things about him yet that we don't know. But, you know, we think, oh, heck, that can't happen. Well, you've got an electric catfish. You've got an electric eel. We've got those G's of lightning bugs we saw that night, all the things that they can do that we don't, you know, we don't necessarily know all that stuff about. But I want to show that, hey, the infrasound is actually real. And it's one of those things that it can make you sick. It made Stephen sick one time. He was laying on the gurney fixing to.
That's Stephen?
Yep. So they were fixing to shoot him full of it. I'm sorry. Fixing to shoot him full of adrenaline through his heart.
Oh, wow.
Oh, let's talk about that. Stephen. Tell us about that.
If that's what it was, if it was infrasound, I mean, I reached out and Chuck, which we visited with Chuck last Friday night, I guess.
Friday night, Chuck Slabs had the Oklahoma Chasing the Beast. Great researcher.
Gotcha.
Yep. And I reached out to Chuck, you know, because this happened to me in 1998. It was in October of 98. And it's I was had to go to the brush, and everything's normal, fine. Coming back, I started feeling bad immediately. By the time I made it back to the equipment, I had to sit down. I couldn't go any farther. I finally stumbled across the road because I was having trouble seeing and everything else. Broke out in hives, toes swelled up, hands swelled up.
Wow.
Loose stool or explosive would be a way to describe it. Finally got me to the doctor, to the ER. I was losing consciousness.
Wow.
On the way to the hospital. Lost consciousness in the hospital. After I came to from that time, they'd already had me ready to be transported because they didn't know if I was going to survive or not, because my heart rate had dropped down so low that the doctor in the ER told my parents that they weren't sure if I was going to survive or not.
Wow.
And, so in 98, I would have, I think I should have been about 26 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I've had some other events since then, but then right there, with the doctor that I went to at the time, I mean, if that was infrasound, I didn't hear anything, nothing bit me or nothing like that, you know. It is real similar to anaphylactic shock.
So what was the doctor's diagnosis? I mean, what did he say was wrong with you, or did he not even know?
The ER doctor had no clue. I went to another doctor after that, you know, for a checkup. And he said the only thing that he could come up with was that it possibly could have been a mast cell release, which is kind of like an asthma attack. But I know after that initial time right there, it was, I didn't work for the rest of that week. I couldn't work. I mean, just being awake for a few hours at a time would wear me out. And here's the rest of it that I've never told anybody before, is it took me a few years to recover from that, in all honesty.
Sure.
Because whatever it was, whether that was infrasound or whether it was something else, I can't say with 100% accuracy. I mean, I've had other stuff go on, different health problems through the years. It seems like since 2020, William and I have both had a lot of health problems.
Exactly right.
Just different things. But I know for sure that I had experienced infrasound in Oklahoma years ago, and that was different from what that first time was. You know, if that first time was infrasound, it was with another researcher. We were out there, and that researcher asked me, said, "Can you feel it?" I said, "There's a Bigfoot out here." I said, "Yeah," and I pointed. I said, "It's right down there." And when I pointed, that's when you're in the field. I know that you two, y'all are kind of sensitive to things, and everything was, you know, like a 2 or a 3. When I pointed, everything went to a full-blown 10.
Oh, okay.
Just because I pointed, it was crazy. And that researcher had not had that face-to-face encounter where they can say, "I truly seen a Bigfoot." So I turned around, trying to make the situation more comfortable for the Bigfoot. And what I could feel is, if you've ever been in front of a huge stack of speakers and the vibration that's coming from it, that's what I could feel from my shoulders to my waist. It was just, it was crazy. It was crazy. Now, the researcher beside me said that they felt pressure in their chest, and for me, I felt a vibration.
Right. So our bodies are all different. You know, you felt it one way, you felt it another. Wow, that's really interesting. And that's the thing with like this infrasound, because, you know, you're not the only one that I've heard of getting sick and things like that. You know, things happening. You know, Martin Groves, another good friend of ours, it happened to him multiple times, and even BMR in chat. You know, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. You know, his girlfriend was knocked out of the boat.
Yep.
You know,
so it's a real deal. The crazy thing to me is the way that they can control it, because every government test that I've heard about, as William talked about earlier, a lot of governments have tested infrasound, and the problem that they all ran into is it got everybody.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, you know what? There's a good question here that Keith asked, and he says, "Is infrasound used as more of a defensive tool or something more aggressive?" What do you guys think about that? That's a great question, Keith.
They can use it for what they want to use it for. And let me elaborate on that a little bit more. A lot of times, if they want to, they can use infrasound for different things. Just like on that night, I think it was more of a, okay, we're all aware of each other being right here. Y'all stay there. That's what it is. But they can hit you harder with it, to the point where people can get sick. And with what I experienced, I know that other researchers from Texas and Mississippi, Alabama, they've experienced the very same thing, where it would literally make them, their vomiting, the explosive stool, the whole deal. They would hit them the same way. Headaches, have trouble seeing. When the lower the infrasound comes down, the more it begins to vibrate your internal organs. Once it drops below a 10, once it drops below 20, you can no longer hear it. It drops out of the range of human hearing. And once it drops below 10, that's when it starts vibrating your insides, and it can actually hurt you. Yeah. Once it drops down that low. And I think probably the older ones can probably do that.
Yeah.
Well, infrasound, it's not just animals. There was a guy who used to sing at the Pierce Arrow Theater in Branson, Missouri. His name is Tim Storms. He's a bass singer for that group, or he was. And he can drop down, I forget how many notes lower than a piano. He can actually hit infrasound with his vocal cords. And you can look him up on YouTube. When he hits his low note, you can't hear it. Wow,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
I have a friend there that the same way. It hit him twice in the same week down there squirrel hunting. And I think they use it a lot of times. It's a defensive technique to keep things from really accelerating a little more than that. But then if you don't take heed to the defensive technique, then it becomes more of an offensive deal. So it's kind of a six.
Right.
But when you experience it, you can ask Daniel the first day we took him to ground zero. Man, I mean, both of our daggum necks and back were just vibrating. It's like I was hooked up to a TENS unit, you know?
Yeah.
And Daniel goes, "Oh my gosh, this electricity, this environment is electric," and it really was. And that sounds silly, but I'm not telling you the story. Y'all know I'm telling you the truth. And so, man, it was just so it's things that they have there that makes them such an interesting creature. But I think they can actually use it for both, just depending on how they feel threatened, or whether they have little ones out there, or maybe it's just territory. Whatever it is, they want you out there. So that would be my opinion, and I think that backs up Stephen's opinion as well. I didn't mean to violate his HIPAA rights a while ago by telling this story here. If I get arrested, y'all come bail me out.
You're absolutely fine, man.
He freely told you, so his HIPAA rights are gone. Okay. You're not a medical professional. You are not liable. So, okay.
And I don't play one on TV. So.
Right. So, do you think that they could use this technique in a certain direction? Like, say, if there's a group of people, and not a very big group, say there's 4 people sitting around, it can actually concentrate on one person.
Yep.
I really do myself.
That's the craziest part about it.
I believe that too, just because of the other people that I know that this has happened to.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna tell a little bit personal, and this is something that Pete, this is the first time I'm telling this, but I'm gonna tell it here because everybody needs to know. Everybody needs to know the truth, so we can find everything out, put our puzzle pieces together to figure this whole thing out.
Sure.
Now, I went up hiking with 4 people. 3 people and myself, 4 people. And we walked up there and we decided we were going to sit in this one area. All lights are off and we're just sitting there and we're kind of talking back and forth to each other. But I felt a vibration sitting on this log. Now, there was another person sitting on the log next to me and I physically felt it. And I said, "Hey, do you feel that vibration?" They said, "No." They literally said I was crazy.
And I was at camp and she came back and that was the first thing she told me.
Yeah, I felt that.
You're not crazy. People walking in to an area. Chuck went over this last Friday. Again, I asked him. I wanted him to share it again. Chuck got hit. People with him didn't get hit one time. Another time, another guy walking behind him goes to his knees. See, and this right here, people have also, I believe, with the infrasound or whatever else they can do, whether it just be infrasound or if they've got some other something that they can do, people can actually lose some time, and they can lose sense of direction.
I would think that would it like an onset of confusion.
Yes.
Like it would automatically make you confused, like you don't know what's going on, and it's like everything just becomes not blurry, but it's just nothing else seems to matter besides what's happening to your body at that point. You can't see anything else, you can't hear anything else. It's what's happening to you right then.
Right.
I mean, that's a great defensive technique, if you ask me.
Oh, it is. And the thing about infrasound is, I mean, infrasound, different animals elephants use infrasound. Infrasound can travel through a dense forest, heavy, thick foliage, and it can be felt by other animals. All right. Another thing that William and I believe we're both convinced on is something called ultrasound.
Yep.
It goes up beyond the range of what we can hear. And we were riding around one night. We didn't have anything, no activity at ground zero.
None.
So we were just creeping down the road about 5 miles an hour. It already got dark. And we were had the windows rolled down, just barely moving. You could hear the frogs. You could hear all the cicadas and all the other bugs, crickets, everything else making all kinds of noise. And for some reason, on my side of the road, something whistled at us from the woods.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, I still don't know why I do some things I do sometimes. I whistle back at it.
Oh,
wow.
Oh yeah.
yes.
And the very next thing that happened, everything goes quiet, just like you flipped the switch.
Mm-hmm.
There's not another sound to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we always
So-
we always like to kid people is like when you get a response or something happens when you throw out a whistle, a whoop, or whatever. We always like to say you better be careful. You might be putting out that mating call. We're not sure.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's true.
We're not sure. Better be careful.
You're right.
But
Oh,
that's
yeah.
like Steve said, that really happened, man. I mean, we're sitting there and he whistles back, and truly I didn't think anything about him whistling back. We do a lot of whistling which when we're doing
Yeah.
calling, trying to, if they're not answering, trying to find something that will provoke a response. But he just whistles back. And man, it's like the inside of a tune. And we're creeping down this road and these are millions of bugs, like what we experienced there, millions of what they call peepers, the tree frogs and things like that. And all of a sudden it just gets quiet. And it was so unnerving because, it's like it's the tilting point in a horror show when all of a sudden everything happens to you like that. That's what we were expecting. Thank goodness it didn't, but that was cool enough. The fact that everything was just so quiet and there was no explanation for it.
Uh-huh.
Wow. You just never know when you go in the woods, do you?
Right.
And
Well,
that's why
I know a little bit more now than I used to.
yeah.
I used to walk in the woods like, hey, there's nothing out here. There's nothing. I know different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a question here real quick. Vieric says, so do you not recommend whistling back?
Be careful whistling at night. I would say that. Whistles is something I try to let them do. I don't. If I do a whistle at night, I'm usually trying to do like a screech owl whistle or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not just whistling because I've heard the whistles multiple times. I do have whistles recorded, that.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I mean, I've pulled up in my yard before, and I've had whistles behind me and in front of me.
Oh, wow.
It's, and that made it fun because we forgot to leave the carport light on.
Oh, goodness. And they're all up there peeking in your windows. Hey, you going to whistle some more? What you
Yeah.
going to do in there?
Or they
So
come up
that's,
they come up and steal this deer carcass out of his frozen ice chest and take it to the woods with them, and then leave his wife's car has to be dusty at that time, and leave handprints all over her car. They look like the monster drink,
Yeah.
That's
They're watching you. I swear. You're telling me something that, I know personally now is will watch you. They will sit there for days and watch you. They'll watch, when you leave, when you come back, and what your manners. And they probably watched you put that food out there.
that's
Oh yeah.
And they're like, there's some dinner. We're gonna wait on that.
Yeah. What do you guys think about, now we've done this. We are guilty of it. What do you guys think about playing the Sierra sounds out in the?
I've been out there when that's happened before. A friend of ours from Texas, Michael, he does that. I mean, I've been out there with him in Oklahoma, him and Mary, my wife. We were all out there one night. We were on a ridgetop, and he was doing that. And we weren't really getting just a whole lot of response from the Sierra sounds, but he had another call that he did. He played at the end of that. And what I wound up doing was doing something kind of like the Ohio howl, if you're familiar with that one.
Uh-huh.
It's basically that call that Bobo would do.
Yeah.
Right.
And I did that before his last audio clip stopped playing. I started that, and I did get a response. And whenever I got the response, well, there were people started getting behind me when I got the response. So,
Right. Well, do you think that maybe sometimes, because we talk about the Sierra sounds and all this stuff. I wondered if their language or, just their whole speech in general is not a universal thing. that maybe they're like other, like humans. Some of us speak a different language. We have different dialects. We are Southern and Northern and different slang. I mean, could that be a reason why some people get responses with it and some people don't?
Mhm.
This is one of those linguist guys said he actually slowed down, like hearing the quote gibberish unquote from the babies, and it actually turned into a whole different language by slowing it down just a few. I don't know how he classified it, but because I'm not that electronically smart, but all of a sudden he slows it down and it just turns into a whole nother language like that.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
I was wondering about that. If they could all communicate together, or is there is a language barrier, maybe, and maybe infrasound or some other like body gestures or something like that is how they get through. I don't know. I was just wondering about that.
Yeah. It's different. I don't know if you ever heard the talking before. I've only heard it once. But to me, it didn't necessarily sound like samurai chatter. To me, it sounded more like the won't off of Charlie Brown. And there were two of them talking. And my youngest daughter was with me. My youngest daughter, Sydney, was with me. I mean, she's a Bigfoot magnet. We can't get her to go anymore. But but she was with me that evening. And it's kind of, I looked at her and was like, do you hear that? She's like, he was ready to go when she heard it because there's no roads down there where it's coming from. It's
right.
But that,
I mean, I've heard recordings. I've heard recordings where it sounds like a man and a wife fighting.
Yeah.
Like a man and a woman, they're fighting, and you definitely can tell the difference between the deeper tone and then the shrill higher one. I mean, it definitely sounded like a man and woman fighting.
It did. Yeah. Have you guys ever? So this is something that Brandy tried. We were at the Land Between the Lakes, and we had good luck with it there. And we actually used it at Emmaus here a couple weeks ago, and had good luck with it. And that's a singing bowl.
Oh, okay.
I'll have to. The next time I come down, I'll make sure that I bring them, and we'll try them out. I mean, it'll probably be something super new for them. So I would expect activity, because you get activity just going out there and talking with them, or just talking. And I can just imagine if you just got this new sound, out there, I'm pretty sure that we could probably maybe get some good audio, definitely get some good audio.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The singing bowls, that'd be interesting to try. I've heard of people going out there, with a drum.
Yeah.
And doing that. We've never even tried that with a drum.
Yeah. We tried that. And then Elijah Henderson, we were with him, and he's done the death whistle, too.
Oh, the death whistle. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was interesting too. But the singing bowl is really interesting because they really do. It really picks up the activity.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's, I don't know. Maybe it's our way of infrasounding them or something. I don't know.
It definitely puts that frequency within the air, that vibration.
And you can almost feel it too.
Yep. I mean, when you're holding it, you can definitely, even just twirling around it, you can feel it all the way up your arms. I mean, when you're sitting there doing it. So I can just imagine if their sensitivity is super high, how they're going to feel that. And it should feel pretty good, almost kind of like music for them. Should.
Yeah.
We talked about the whistling too. One reason you generally don't whistle, there's a Bigfoot species there that we call Gugway, and they communicate by whistling. Their nickname is Whistling Bear. Me and Stephen heard a couple of first night we ever went down to Sulphur River together after we had left the Bigfoot conference there in Jefferson. But then those doggone Gugway, that's their way of communicating. And like y'all said earlier, you don't know what you're saying, but if you hit the right decibel, I can hit the right. My dogs know when I go out there. I can. They know that I'm coming. With food or something like that. But I can go out there and I can really blast it. Without using.
Right.
And, they know the difference, and they know the difference in that whistle. So that's the thing about. I also use a train whistle like you can get from like Cracker Barrel. So it's got the vibrate, and they tend to answer that real well. So it's one of those things. You just you don't know what you're going to get, but be prepared for anything. But
yeah, that was the first time William and I made it out to the woods together after that conference in Jefferson was that William did a call, and we got the bionic bird. It made us as straight a line as you can make where we were at, and it stopped 30, 40 yards from us out there.
from it, yeah.
Poked its head out behind a tree, and we could see the eye shine off of it.
Yep.
And it checked us out, and it was gone. It was over. But I mean, the bionic bird, if you've ever heard of people talk about the bionic bird, that's what that was. I mean, it's just as straight as an arrow coming towards you whenever they do it.
Wow. Yeah, it's I tell you what, they're such fascinating creatures. And you, speaking of the Gugway, you have one of the best pictures I've ever seen of a Gugway, Will.
Yes.
I appreciate that. That was quite harrying for me right there because I was, I didn't know much about Gugway. I'd learned just a little bit, but not much. But I wasn't skeptical, but I just didn't think there was any around where we lived. And that dude ran up on me on all fours coming out of that daggum oak flat and took off and then sitting there looking at it. But then he goes and gets behind that log that's laying there and puts his head between those two roots. And he's like, come on by, Will. It's time for supper. Oh, I'd like to invite you. By the way, you're the main course. Well, no. Yeah. So, so thank goodness I saw him. And I only had like a little 40 caliber Glock. But after that happened, I couldn't go back the next day because I was PTSD like crazy. And I ran from that dude, and I hadn't ran from Bigfoot then in probably 40 years or more like that.
Yeah.
And it scared me to death. So that dude right there, but that Gugway, like I said, he definitely meant business. I found a place right close to there where he had actually built him a Bigfoot and the Gugway as well, build hunting shelters. They'll take the limbs and they'll cross them over like that and get inside right there off one of them trails. And whenever the animal comes through, they just pounce on them and all of a sudden they've got supper time. Mm-hmm. And there was a hunting structure right there. Also a couple of 17-inch footprints where the things were going through. And so that really shook me up. And then, like I said, thank goodness my son had bought me a gun for Father's Day. Of course, that was a couple months early, but anyway, he gave it to me. Then he brought me a 45-70 rifle, which, like I said, will shoot lengthwise to a buffalo. Again, I'm not killing Bigfoot. When you go with Gugway, they say if you see Bigfoot, just stand there and he'll probably walk on by. If you see Dog Man, just sit there and see what he does. More than likely, he's not going to get real aggressive. But if you see Gugway, shoot him because he's going to try to hurt you. And that's what they say when y'all mentioned LBL. Supposedly what the creature from LBL was supposedly a Gugway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
could very well be. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I know several people that have seen the beast of the LBL.
Yes.
And actually I think it was 2 years ago, it was Gabby Henderson. Yeah. Her and someone else, they were together and her brother was in the back seat. Or she was in the back seat, I think, but her and the driver saw it and her brother did not. And it was on all fours.
Yeah.
And she came back and she said it was the beast of the LBL. So whether it was a Dog Man, whether it was a Gugway, I don't know, but it was on all fours and it crossed the road. And she said it was built actually like, and she's such a nice kid though. It was built like Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
How she compared, the muscles and the arms,
Just not that good looking. I'm just sorry.
Yeah. True.
Me and Gary Spikes there one night. The only time Steve and I ever been to LBL, and we were standing there right there at the base of a hill. Bigfoot starts whistling at me and Gary Spikes Sr. right there. I said, Gary, you hear that? And I said, we got a Bigfoot up there whistling. Well, after I spoke, like I'm paying attention to it, it quits. And then it finally waits till we're not necessarily paying as much attention. It starts whistling again. And so that was like our only experience, but they recognize that. That LBL, is again, we talked about what we have there with what Ron Moorhead and them got, with the Sierra sounds. I heard the Sierra sound one night when me and my son were down there bow hunting late afternoon, and it did the very one what's called the Sierra growl. It ain't no growl, man. They got that misnamed because it's and then it quits and it does it again. Man, even right now my hair is standing up because I've got my son in a deer stand about 100 yards away by himself.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. And so I'm like, oh, my gosh. So I take off running. I've got a crossbow, which shoots bolts this long. It doesn't shoot your arrows. And so then I've got a 22 9-shot pistol, and then I have got a machete. And I'm running to get my son. So I get there, and I slow down right as I come around the corner there, and I'm trying not to scare him. And so I looked over and said, buddy, it's about time to go, getting dark. Did you hear that? I'm like, yes, I heard that, and so Reese pretty sharp. And even at that age, I think he was like 13. Mm-hmm. And he said, what was that? And I said, that's probably just some barred owls laughing. We heard a bunch of that laughing that night. And he's like, no, it wasn't. It was that sound that Bigfoot makes on Animal Planet. Well, of course, I wasn't going to lie to him because, that wasn't going to do any good. Even though I didn't want to scare him. And I said, it is. I said, so just come on down out of the tree. And I was looking around and never had any more trouble. But he had been taking my doggone deer feeder and just flipping it over and tearing it up in knots. He actually broke 3 or 4 bolts in there. He broke the harness that holds the big old plastic barrel in there like that. And so it was torn when we got there. We thought, well, maybe it's hogs. But I'd even taken 3 pieces of pipe 3 feet long and drove them in triangular shape and put the legs in there. So it wasn't no hogs. And you knew what it was after they had a big old, about a 12, 13-inch scratch right down the side of that plastic barrel. So that Sierra sounds, it really works, and Reese is one of the favorites. One that Reese has on this one's actually doing the whoop call, but it's more like not like whoop, it's go whoop, 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 like that right there. And Reese gets a lot of activity. He's got a different voice pitch than I do, so he actually gets more than that right there. So so it is. Those are really good. Like I said, you just got to be careful. But I think after a while they realized. Like one night, Stephen went there and he called me. I was coming out of church. He goes, man, where are you at? And I said, well, I'm just stepping out of church. He goes, no, up here at Ground Zero. He said, where are you at? I said, I'm in Dexter County, just stepping out of church. He goes, I just heard your owl call. I said, well, man, and he said, it wasn't just an owl call. It was your owl call. Y'all have heard my owl call. And so it recognized that so Stephen was able to communicate with this thing for 45 minutes to an hour after that right there.
Wow.
Then the next night, And Stephen's got a great call himself, man, Stephen can do like you see on the Monsters, man, when Herman goes to whistle like that and trees go to blowing over. Y'all see what a big guy Stephen is, Stephen's a big man, and greatest guy there is. But Stephen tells you it's true. And so then that next night that he goes back out there and tries the owl call or the cough, he had a cough there. And tried that right there. And it was a whole nother story. It was like, you lucked out last night. Now, if you want to get out of here, you better not test our luck again. So Stephen had to leave. He called me and he said, hey, man, he said, I'm here at Ground Zero. I'm leaving. I just want you to know, just in case something happens, because this thing is not acting like it did last night. So I kept him on the phone until he got to his vehicle. And then whenever he got home to make sure.
Well, I'm sorry. We had MK Ultra talking about the sound that you made. And he wanted you to do it again, but somebody said, hey, just watch the show again. And yes, please watch the show again. That'll be great for us to hear that again. But being out in the field with you and having you guys do these calls and stuff, I guess you would have to be there to hear it, but it is so it's spot on. It's realistic. It's right there. You wouldn't know the difference if they were standing off at a distance doing it. You wouldn't know.
Thank you for saying that, because I was a UPS man. I was in my truck every day, 12 and 13 hours. All I had to do was make animal calls, whenever I was driving from one residence to another, And so I was able, I didn't say I perfected them, but I was able to get them to where I could actually get responses from these animals. But that's an easy call. I'll give you a short blast. And he goes again. And that's called the Sierra growl, but you can actually download that as an app on your phone. And I do that many times. I'll back up to the water, put it on my truck, and let my speakers blast that sound onto the water. And it works. I'm telling you, it works.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing.
That is. Because you sound just like it. It's just, anybody who's ever heard it's like, oh, yeah, that's it. I could never do that, but my goodness, that is right there with it.
I appreciate that. And it works. Even with my old scratchy voice, it works, So, but
William does really good
phone. Load that onto your phone and take that with you and give it a try, and you might be surprised,
Yeah. There's another question in here for you guys. That's a good question. Vierick says, man, I'm sorry I'm late to this. I'll have to go back and watch from the beginning. I always love hearing about your most cherished interaction with them and your most scariest one too. Already covered. No, we haven't actually covered that. Do you guys each want to take a turn and your most cherished, and your most scariest.
Go ahead, Stephen. I'll let.
Well, the one that Williams talked about a while ago, where they were did Williams call, and the interaction that night, it was just fun because it's kind of wow, they're just having fun. I mean, when they decided it was over, it was the second loudest tree knock I've ever heard in my life, and that was it.
Yeah.
Now the scariest interaction I've ever had, I'll say, definitely the one at Ground Zero. I've been spooked before in other places, but at Ground Zero, the scariest one I've ever had was I was going out and putting treats out at the candy store, and by the time I got there, it had already got dark. And as soon as I opened the truck door, it's kind of like I just got cold chills. It's kind of wow. But my imagination is just running away with itself. So I basically gave myself a pep talk, and I had a light with me. It's about equivalent to your cell phone light. Yeah. So you know how far away your cell phone light will shine.
Right.
Not very far. So I walked on out there to the candy store, and I had chill bumps the whole time. It's kind of wow. This is. I wasn't sure if I was going to have enough nerve to make it all the way to the candy store. So I got out there and I unwrapped the first treat and put it on there, and I couldn't shake the chills.
Right.
So I turned my light on, and when I turned my light on, I could see something white, and it was about 30 steps away from me. So I turned my light back off, and I thought, no, I'm not seeing what I think I'm seeing. So I began fumbling around trying to open the second treat, and I couldn't stand it anymore. I think I just dropped that one on the ground. I turned my light back on to make sure what I thought I saw the first time was still there, and sure enough, it was, and it was white. And I don't know if it was a big one that was squatted down because I could only see about 4 feet of it with my light, but there's only 30 steps in between us. Basically, from one shoulder of the highway to the other shoulder of the highway, that's the distance between us.
Wow.
And whenever I shined my light the second time, I turned it back off and I just walked straight to the truck.
That's it.
Like the kid that puts his head under the cover whenever something scary's outside his window in his closet. I would have done the same thing.
When those hairs start standing up, you're just like, this is it. It's you're like, this is it. This is it.
Yeah.
Well, I was able to get some of those white Bigfoot on camera. There's probably the same one Stephen got, and I showed y'all one last year with the little babies there and holding his fingers up trying to block the light from coming off the camera out there. But I'll send y'all those pictures next show we all do together, and you can see because this dude, boy, man, like I said, he's white, just like Stephen says, and you think you could see it with that light the dark, but man, all of a sudden, whenever that light hits, man, I mean, it's pretty scary. It's when I looked at him like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I didn't have a gun. I didn't have a knife. I didn't have anything with me but my light and some treats.
Yeah, and you're very hopeful. I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, you're like, what am I gonna do? When am I gonna throw treats at them? What am I gonna do here?
Throw the treats and run.
Hope they don't run out. I'm saying, what I'm saying? Just hope the treats don't run out, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was about as unnerving of encounters I've ever had right there. But I mean, it didn't growl at me. It didn't make any sort of move at all toward me. And I was thankful for that. If it would have growled at me or screamed at me from that distance, I probably would have just passed out.
It's like, I'm coming home, everybody. Just
I've been like Fred Sanford.
That's right. I'm coming home.
Funny. What about you, Will?
Mine about the easiest way to describe it. Like I said, my first one, when I didn't believe in Bigfoot until like 5 seconds before I walked up on him, there he is, and he's 45 yards away, nothing between us but air. Didn't believe in Bigfoot. It messed me up. Big time, especially as the last place I ever hunted with my dad and fished with my dad before he had passed away. So that was really, I haven't been back there by myself since 1977. That's how bad it screwed me up.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Seriously. And then I I got that on. I did a show called "These Woods Are Haunted," and if you wanted to see it, they did it's not a parody. They tried to get it as close to what they could, and so you can see this thing over there. And I'm sitting there looking at him, and man, it runs me. It tears me up. I mean, I actually lose control. I'm crying. I can't. There for a while, I can't run. Like I said, the infrasound's got me glued to the doggone ground.
Right.
And and to be honest with you, like I said, I'm gonna tell y'all this. Y'all share a lot of stuff. Like I said, I wet my pants, but I was potty trained. I was 17 years old and 6'2" and 240. Fixed to play college football, and it messed me up because I didn't have any control.
Yeah.
But they put that on there. That's one that you can see. This will kind of describe it really good. Then the next night I was going to have my family with me, have my wife and son, and we went down there on Easter Sunday 2014. And me and Reese had been interacting with this Bigfoot for about 6 months down there. And we'd actually got him doing the Ohio howl, and we had him, interacting with us. So Cindy, Reese had asked her to go because he was in dental school, and she said, "Well, if I don't go, he's not going to ask me anymore." So we did. We took her down there, and after it took about 45 minutes of finally hitting the right call, man, all of a sudden, here he is. And I told Cindy, said, "There's Bigfoot." So I said, "Well, hey, that sounds like an owl." And I said, "Well, if that's an owl, he weighs about 300 pounds. There ain't very many 300-pound owls up in trees up there."
Right.
So anyway, as we go through there, you can hear him walk around, and they'll walk around. They'll look at you. They want to try to know what you are, whether you're a threat, whether you're not a threat. So like I said, Cindy and Reese are there with me. And so pretty soon he starts tiptoeing around closer. And I told Cindy he was right there, and she goes, "I don't hear anything," and I had to quieten her down. This happened 2 or 3 times, and finally, the last time there, he was sneaking around, and I did the call I told y'all that Reese likes to do, the go whoop, really, really loud at the top of my lungs. And when I did, it made him mad, or he thought he had him a girlfriend, because here he comes on a dead run. And I mean, like Steven said, straight for you, just like the whistles did. And so I told Cindy, I said, she's sitting on the back of my pickup truck, and I said, "Remember I told you we got a Bigfoot coming in?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "Here he comes." She goes, "I don't hear anything." Well, then she heard him. When she did, she not only she hear him, she felt him vibrating the ground. He was on a dead run. I don't know if it was a young one. I don't know if he was Twitter-pated, whether he was angry or whatever it was, but he was coming in. And of course, I've got my son right there and her too. So, and I knew I had to try to be calm. And thank goodness I could. So I just pulled out my pistol with my right hand, spotlight in my left hand. He got about 10 yards closer than I wanted him to.
Yeah.
Because these dudes can run even in that thick woods. And whenever he starts coming through, finally I hit him with that spotlight. Got my pistol right there. Like I said, I'm not going to kill him, but I'm not going to let him kill me or my family,
Right.
And I didn't know what he had in mind, and I knew if there was going to be an altercation, I knew who was going to be in it, and I knew who was going to win it. so I got, you can't win it unless you're in it. Well, I just want to survive. But anyway, I got it. And so when I hit him that spotlight, he instantly just threw his hand and his arm across his eyes and just rolled down to the ground like that. Took off on all fours about 3 or 4 strides, and then stood up, went running back then towards Sulphur River, crossed a little road, and he jumps up in a tree in front of my son. And I'm like, oh man. So he thinks my son is the weak link. So I go and get between him. Finally, he takes off. He gets deathly quiet. I mean, it's just deathly quiet. Of course, y'all heard this is the funny part. My wife goes, "If you hear this truck start, y'all better jump into the back." She said, "Because I'm gone." And I said, "Cindy, you're going to leave your husband and your only son out here in the woods with a rogue Bigfoot." And she goes, "I'll have more kids. You just better."
I can remarry.
Yeah,
it's no big deal.
Yeah, that was a given right there. Because anyway, then we got a phone call from her sister-in-law. "Hey, sister, what are you doing?" "Oh, we're down here in the Bigfoot woods. Y'all have anything happen?" "Oh, yeah." And the sister-in-law, boy, she really helps out because she goes, "You're going to die." I'm like, "Oh, gosh, thank you, Leah, for that right there." So, anyway, it was 22 miles from my house, and I got 22 miles worth of earful all the way home. But see, it was cool. The next day, I was able to get off work and go back down there. She wanted to go. I wouldn't let her go because I knew she was the catalyst. I didn't want to get her hurt. I don't care my dogs with me because I didn't want to get them hurt. But anyway, he was back. He was still there. And so we did a little stalking combine of our own. When I finally got about 30 yards away with a big oak tree between us, I looked up and he was gone. So anyway, that's probably my scariest. That I had another one where a Bigfoot was going to get after me and my pit bull, female pit bull. That was very scary too. But all of them are unnerving. You're hoping for a good outcome, but so many things can happen, and there can be an intangible. There can be a baby there that will, will change the whole dynamic. Or they could have had somebody shooting at them that day. And then when I got there that night or got there that afternoon, they're not in a happy mood with people. So that's kind of one of the things that you have to consider.
Yeah.
But those are the ones that have got there, most of the scariest for me. But man, I had one time, had a baby one time. I was trying to stalk him and I was watching him. I could barely see just a little bit. The whole thing didn't last 10 seconds. I'm walking down the edge of the river, Sulphur River, and I step in a hole and fall in the water. And it's almost like he stops and laughs. And if I look back up and he's gone. So that was funny. And those kind of things, those kind of things have, but I've had some great experiences. I mean, I enjoy this so much, and like when we all went together, like that right there.
Oh, yeah.
And to tell people without a doubt, like Stephen said, you want to think, oh man, are these things real? Is it actually possible? Folks, there's not a doubt in this world. Bigfoot is real. And, y'all seen my phone. I've got 100 pictures of Bigfoot, body parts, teeth, fingers, thumbs, they're there, and most of them are pretty good and clear. And that's what my whole purpose is, and I think Stephen's too. We're not, ain't neither one of us monetized. We do this because we enjoy it, but we want to let people know that, hey, be prepared. There's things out there in the woods that you're not necessarily prepared for.
Right.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
So I hope that kind of answered the question. But anyway, it's fun because I do enjoy it. As y'all notice, me and Steve have been laughing the whole time. We've been scared out of our wits, but it's so much fun to get out there and do and to find a guy like him that you can do stuff with together. Steve and I've been friends a long time. I took him to the Bigfoot to a river up there around the Costock one time. Yeah. Didn't tell him what we were doing, and so we're playing softball. So I had gotten a Bigfoot report, and I knew that's the closest I was going to be. So we went there to one of these low water bridges. And so I didn't tell Stephen what we was doing. We sit there and tiptoe around a little bit, and I look around trying to find some tracks. 30 years later, whenever we finally he has his family, I have my family, and he contacts me, and he goes, will you ask me a question? I said, sure. He goes, that first time that we were down at Costock down there waiting around, he said, were we Bigfoot hunting? And I just busted out laughing. I said, yes, we were. So he figured it out. And,
I was. You weren't. I was.
But that kind of started our Bigfoot research together. But he and I have had a good time. We've had a lot of successful experience. Y'all can see from this doggone podcast just how valuable he is to my research and what a good guy and how credible that he is, and I hope everybody out there can recognize it too, man. We're like Batman and Robin, man, or Laurel and Hardy, whatever you want to say. Sometimes Laurel and Hardy, but but
it's pretty sad because Chris and I kind of have to wait until next spring to come down and visit again. Only because we've got so much going on, and we don't want to go in the summertime. It's too hot out there. It's hot.
It sure is for a fact.
And then we go into hunting season, so we're just kind of out for the rest of the year. But the springtime is I just like I said, this place is magical that you're talking about.
They're going to start having their babies about probably from what Steve and I have found, probably about the 1st of December. And a lot of them have twins. People go, oh, no, the apes don't have twins. I didn't say Bigfoot was an ape, whatever they are. They're their own creature, and they do have twins. And that's the honest truth. And they'll start having those babies. I showed y'all earlier this year. I hadn't showed you all of them yet, but I've got pictures of Bigfoot walking within 3 foot of my camera. There you go. Yeah. There's right there. Wow. That's Mama. Right there, and you can see on her left shoulder that head popped up. That's not Stephen. That's actually a baby Bigfoot that we have down there. And so she's actually walking by our camera. We would have had her to the face, but they came down and they raised the land, so we had to move our cameras. And so we got a behind shot. But you can see she's stepping over some. It's at what we call the candy store. There's 2 logs that are kind of scissor shaped, and we put the candy bars in between there and just kind of mash them down so that she's going to. If one of them's going to try to get it, we're going to have them there for a while, have a better chance, more time to see it. But anyway, me and Stephen went, and that was the first picture on the slide that morning. And then according to what the timestamp was, I think it was about 6:45 or 7. But anyway, that is actually a mama right there. And you can see the head down. If anybody doubts that, think of the Paul Freeman footage. If y'all have ever seen the Paul Freeman footage.
Yep.
Well, if you remember the picture of Brownie that he showed earlier, remember the posture that Brownie had.
Yeah.
He's bumped over.
Yeah.
She's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Wow. Fantastic. Well, you guys, this has been great. I thank you both very, very much for coming on tonight. Definitely appreciate your both.
I mean, thank y'all for having us. Thank everybody who listened. Man, we don't take this lightly. You chose to spend time listening to mine and Stephen's stories, and I appreciate you for it, because I said we're trying to tell you that what we've had experienced is real. And as y'all saw, we laughed the whole night. We was all down there, you know, and we were just mystified.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
thank y'all too, girl. I appreciate y'all, you know, and man, what y'all do for us, and to help have a venue here that we can go through. And, you know, I love you guys too as well. You know, and of course, like Stephen, like I said, you know why he's one of my research partners. You know?
Absolutely. We
Right.
totally understand. He's a great guy too. And, you know, we'll we'll be seeing you in September for the conference, for the Talking Realms conference. And then, like Brandy said, next spring we'll come back. We'll go back to the woods again. That was a great
Oh,
time.
absolutely.
Thank you for taking us to
I
your
hope
spot.
so.
We're very honored for that.
Well, me too, man. I love y'all so much. And like I said, y'all been so good for us to help us out. And like I said, maybe we can get old Stephen. I may have to get me a U-Haul. We'll throw him in a U-Haul. I'll haul him up to doggone Missouri there with us.
There you go. Come on,
Yeah.
Stephen.
There you go.
Stephen's a big man, but he's got a big heart and a big sense of humor to go with it. So we joke around, but man, I'm so blessed, you know.
Yes. So everybody tune in tomorrow night. We have another research partner of theirs on is Daniel Becker. He couldn't make it on tonight, but he's able to come on tomorrow. So you guys tune in tomorrow night for that show.
Yeah, Bigfoot Part 2.
Good.
Sounds great.
That's it.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. We will see everybody tomorrow night.
7 p.m. Central.
7
p.m. Central. Yes.
And then tune in 25 minutes to Monica Rawlins.
Yes.
Paranormal World. She'll be on. So good night, everybody.
Ladies, I
Good
love
night,
y'all.
everybody.
Thank y'all so much. Thank
Thank
you
you.
to everybody who listened. You guys are very important to what we do. So thank you so much.
See ya.
This is the future. Evolution.
The Crossing Realms Conference launches September 19th and 20th and will dock in Richmond, Missouri. This is already being called the event of the year, folks. With an unprecedented list of speakers and special guests, 2 days of cryptids, UFOs, and paranormal presentations, along with a celebrity-filled ghost hunt, meet and greet, gallery reading, vendors, and a film screening. This promises to be both educational and fun. Go to eventbrite.com to secure your tickets and vendor slots before they are all abducted. They're going fast.